This week, we learned the fate of the Vatican Bank. Pope Francis had tea with the King of Jordan to discuss common goals, and we have details on the Pope's Holy Week Masses. Hello and welcome to Vatican Connections, our last edition before Holy Week. Now, before we get to that, let's turn to things just a little less holy. This week it was announced that the Vatican Bank will not be shut down. The announcement was made in a statement released by the Holy See Press Office. The various advisory boards and oversight boards that were appointed during the last year to study the bank put together a proposal for Pope Francis about the fate of the bank. Pope Francis has accepted their proposal, but the Holy See did not release details about what was actually proposed. All we know is that the bank will not be shut down. It will, quote, continue to provide financial services to Vatican structures, and its activities will continue to fall under the supervision of the Financial Information Authority. Now, turning to Holy Week itself, we have details about the Mass of the Last Supper. You might remember last year, instead of celebrating the Mass of the Last Supper at the Vatican, Pope Francis went to a youth prison to celebrate Mass, and during that Mass washed the feet of 12 young people, including 2 women. This year, Pope Francis will celebrate the Mass of the Last Supper at St. Mary of Providence Center on the outskirts of Rome. The center is a rehabilitation facility for elderly people and people with disabilities. The Mass with the Holy Father will be private. In sad news, retired Chaldean Patriarch Emmanuel Deli III died this week in a San Diego hospital. He was 87 years old. Pope Francis sent a telegram of condolence to Patriarch Louis Sacco, expressing his closeness to the Chaldean faithful. And an update on a story we've been following for some time now. Venezuela has officially asked the Vatican to take part in a dialogue between the government and the opposition parties, according to Venezuelan media. Last week, we learned that the Vatican had expressed willingness to help in any way possible. Now, these reports from Venezuelan sources, however, don't say that the Vatican has been invited to mediate. Instead, it says the Vatican has been invited to participate in the dialogue process. So far, the Vatican has not confirmed that they have received the request or what they will do. We have also learned of 2 other trips Pope Francis will make over the next few months. On June 21st, he will visit Casale allo Ionio in the region of Calabria. Recently, Pope Francis appointed the Bishop of Casale as the president of the Italian Bishops' Conference. So as a way of saying thank you to the faithful of the diocese for sharing their bishop, Pope Francis will visit the area. Then in July, the Pope will visit the Diocese of Campobasso Boiano. Now, the Archbishop of Campobasso has been asked to write the texts for the Stations of the Cross at the Colosseum on Good Friday. Campobasso is located in the region of Molise. It is the smallest Italian region and a primarily rural area where agriculture is the main industry. Youth unemployment in the area is a major issue. Finally, the official logo and motto for the Pope's trip to Korea this summer has been unveiled. Korean bishops presented the logo to the Vatican during a meeting to finalize the details of the visit. The logo features 2 intertwining flames, which are meant to represent both North and South Korea. The motto is, "Arise, shine, for your light has come. The glory of the Lord has dawned upon you." Pope Francis will be in Korea from August 14th to 18th. Time to take a look now at what Pope Francis has been doing this week. The Holy Father met with the organizers of the World Youth Day Rio 2013 on their final visit to Rome. He said World Youth Day was like an experience of the miracle of the loaves and the fishes, but it is not enough to look back and rejoice over the past success of World Youth Day. He said we must look ahead and look at how many young people are still searching for God. He also said Brazilians are thieves because they stole his heart during the visit, and he thanks them for that. On Monday, he also had tea with King Abdullah of Jordan. The informal meeting was held at the Santa Marta guest house, and King Abdullah was accompanied by his brother Prince Ghazi bin Muhammad. According to the Jordanian news agency Petra, the three discussed efforts to achieve peace in the Middle East in line with a two-state solution. They also discussed the situation in Syria and the ways the Vatican and the Kingdom of Jordan can both promote peace in these situations. Pope Francis also said he is looking forward to his upcoming visit to the area. And the bishops of Tanzania were in Rome for their ad limina visits. Pope Francis met with them as part of the visits, and he said, as part of other comments, he praised church workers in Africa who promote chastity as a way of preventing the spread of HIV and AIDS. He also praised the efforts made by the church in Tanzania to promote the formation of lay people so that they too can pass on the gospel message. Wednesday was the general audience. Now, last week, Pope Francis finished his series of catechesis on sacraments, and this week started a new series on the gifts of the Holy Spirit. But what made headlines was what happened just before the audience started. Also, during the general audience, Pope Francis was presented with a large wooden cross. The cross was made out of wood from the boats that sank carrying migrants to Lampedusa. The small Italian island is the destination for migrants from North Africa who are trying to enter Europe to build a better life. Unfortunately, the boats used are often so worn and overcrowded, they sink before reaching land. There were a couple of appointments to report this week, including one in Canada. In Cameroon, the day before 2 Italian priests and a nun were kidnapped, the Bishop of Marua Mokolo retired and his successor was appointed. Father Bruno Ateba Edo will become the new Bishop of Marua Mokolo. Father Edo is a Palatine priest. In Canada, the Diocese of Peterborough is going through some changes. Pope Francis accepted the resignation of Bishop Nicola De Angelis, who reached the mandatory retirement age. In his place, Pope Francis appointed Bishop William McGrattan, who is currently an auxiliary bishop in Toronto. Before becoming auxiliary for Toronto, Bishop McGrattan was the rector of the seminary for the Diocese of London, Ontario. And in a move typical of Pope Francis, the Undersecretary of the Synod of Bishops, Monsignor Fabio Fabene, is being elevated to the rank of bishop. In a letter, Pope Francis said he is doing this to highlight the importance of the Synod of Bishops. Finally, this week, our Roman profile takes us to a site believed to be the stairs that Jesus would have walked up on his way to Pilate. Those stairs were believed to have been brought to Rome by St. Helena, and today they're being restored for the first time ever.
We are in Rome at the sanctuary of Scala Santa, in English, the Holy Stairs. People from all around the world come here to visit this place that Jesus has mounted when he came to Pilate to be judged and condemned to death.
The sanctuary is what we call a populist site. It's not glamorous like the Sistine Chapel. This is the people's sanctuary. This is one of the reasons perhaps it has not been a priority to restore it. The frescoes are invisible or very poorly seen, and we are slowly unveiling them.
The Holy Stairs is an extremely important project to the Vatican museums because it's the last great restoration of the 500s. It's papal property, it's the glory of the end of the 1500s, it's one of the best preserved frescoes, and from a scientific point of view, it's exciting because it was never really seriously restored in all of its history. So when we're touching the frescoes, we're touching history. There's nothing's happened between then to get in the way.
Siamo quasi alla fine della pulitura e abbiamo riscoperto dei magnifici contrasti e cromatismi originali che questi affreschi comunque avevano e che in qualche maniera contraddistinguono questo tipo di pittura, questo tipo di pittura decorativa tipica della fine del Cinquecento. La nostra emozione è quella di ritrovare le superfici cinquecentesche e questo ci permette di fare un salto nella storia perché improvvisamente riscopriamo le pennellate degli affreschi e delle decorazioni cinquecentesche che hanno una freschezza e una immediatezza che ci riporta proprio al momento dell'esecuzione.
This is really a project to renew faith in a physical site. And because of the penitence of mounting the stairs, because of the iconographical content of these works, the most important point here is the spiritual experience of the Holy Stairs.
If it can even bring solace to someone who's suffering, if it can convince someone mired in a challenge and a difficulty and a weakness that they don't find the moral courage to overcome and have a spiritual experience before the Passion of Christ, for example, walking up on their knees, doing this gesture of faith, if that missing link is the atmosphere that helps them get over the hump, well, there's infinite value there. And that's why the Church cares about its art in the end.
Vatican Connections is interactive. We answer your questions and explain things you want to know. You can reach us on Twitter @VatiConnections or by email at info@saltandlighttv.org. We'll try our best to answer your questions during this part of our show. Well, that's it for Vatican Connections. This is our last edition before Holy Week and the canonizations. Join us again on Friday, May 2nd. Until then, follow us on Twitter or check our blog for updates. From everyone here, thanks for watching and see you next time.